Today, we are diving deep into the strategic mind of, well, one of entertainment's all-time greatest disruptors, Johnny Knoxville. And look, forget everything you think you know about the stunts, the pranks, the pure chaos. We're going to unpack the philosophy and the system that let a total outsider tear down an industry that was specifically built to keep guys like him out. It's a masterclass in strategy and bravery and in completely rewriting the rulebook. Let's get into it.
And this right here, this single thought, is the key that unlocks the whole story. Just try to put yourself in his shoes for a second. You're an aspiring actor in LA, you're surrounded by this endless ocean of perfect, smiling headshots. And it finally clicks. The whole game is rigged. Waiting around for the perfect script, for that one-in-a-million audition, it's a trap. It's a losing strategy designed to make you quit. Knoxville knew, deep down, he couldn't win their game. So, he had to invent his own.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to look at the problem he was up against, Hollywood's impenetrable billion-dollar walls. Then we'll see how his early life forged him into a true outsider. From there, we'll decode his core philosophy, what we're calling the currency of impact, and see how he built a repeatable, daily system for chaos. We'll look at his massive legacy and redefining what an entertainer even is. And then, the most important part, we'll talk about what this all means for you with your bulletproof vest.
All right. Let's kick things off with Hollywood's billion-dollar walls. You see, to really get Knoxville's genius, you have to understand the fortress he decided to attack. This wasn't just an industry, it was a whole ideology built on perfection. I mean, think about what entertainment looked like back then. It was the era of polished, well, everything. A complete conveyor belt of conformity. The whole system ran on a very specific formula, right? You find these impossibly good-looking, charismatic actors, you plug them into perfectly structured sitcoms with predictable laugh tracks, and you just press repeat. The gatekeepers, the casting directors, the agents, the studio execs, they weren't looking for original ideas. No way. They wanted conformity. They wanted safe investments. Anything that was raw, messy, or, God forbid, authentic, that wasn't an asset. That was a liability. All the power was at the top, and outsiders were definitely not invited to the party.
And this slide just lays out that conflict perfectly. The insider's game, over there on the left, it was all about appearances. The polished headshot, sitting by the phone, waiting for someone else's script, and just constantly begging for approval from the people in charge. Knoxville, he flipped this whole thing on its head. His weapons, on the right, were the polar opposite. Instead of a perfect headshot, he used what the source calls primal logic, this deep, gut-level understanding of what really makes people react, what makes us laugh, what makes us wince. Instead of waiting for scripts, he was out there actively seeking impact. And maybe most important of all, instead of seeking approval, he committed to something called radical authenticity, no matter how painful or ridiculous it looked.
Which brings us to the absolute core idea of this whole explainer, the Knoxville Principle. And it's a really powerful, counterintuitive idea. It's the belief that your greatest weakness, the one thing the system tells you to hide at all costs, your fear, your flaws, your ability to completely fail, is actually your most lethal professional weapon. It's about taking that vulnerability and turning it into an offensive strategy. It's turning that willingness to fall flat on your face in front of the whole world into an unstoppable force. The key thing to get here is that it's not just about being fearless, it's about making fearlessness your brand.
So, where does a principle like that even come from? It doesn't just pop into your head. It has to be forged, in the fire of experience. And Knoxville's early life wasn't just some backstory. It was the training ground for his entire philosophy.
Yeah, this was not some privileged Hollywood kid. He was a kid in Tennessee dealing with really severe asthma, which meant he was in this constant breathless fight for what the source calls biological sovereignty, a basic fight for control over his own body. When you grow up not knowing if you can take your next breath, you learn pretty quick that authority, even the authority of doctors, isn't always the final word. You learn to question the systems that are supposed to keep you safe. Now add to that his father, a man whose prankster logic was just a way of life, always setting up these absurd situations just to get a real genuine laugh. So when this kid gets to LA and becomes just another face in that headshot pile, he doesn't just feel rejected, he feels invisible. And that feeling, being totally ignored, that became his rocket fuel. You can see his whole evolution right here. It starts in childhood, questioning authority. Then it moves to his early LA years, getting absolutely ground down by the system's complete indifference. And then 1996, the pivotal moment, the point of no return, the vest test. Desperate for a magazine to notice him, he decides to test self-defense equipment on himself. He has a friend film him getting shot with a bulletproof vest on, getting tased, getting pepper sprayed. This wasn't a joke. It was a documented refusal to be standard. It was the first real-world test of the Knoxville Principle. That whole period was his forge, where he started to systematically unlearn that basic human need for other people's approval. By the year 2000, he had his big realization. His sovereign chaos, his unique power to create his own unpredictable world, that was his future.
Now, all of that struggle, all that rejection, it wasn't just for nothing. It was R&D. It was research. It let him develop this powerful, really revolutionary philosophy that became the engine for everything that came next.
This quote, this is everything. The lick is the currency. You see, Hollywood's economy was built on things you can't really touch: beauty, connections, talent. Knoxville created a brand new, tangible economy. In his world, value wasn't about how good you looked saying a line. It was about the honesty of a physical impact. The lick, the hit, the fall, the crash. That was the moment of pure, undeniable truth. That was the transaction. And it generated the only thing that mattered to him: a genuine, unfiltered human reaction. And this led him straight to his core strategy: radical authenticity. Let's be really clear, this wasn't just some vague idea of being real. It was a discipline. It meant committing to that moment of failure, staying in the crash, as the source puts it, long enough for the raw truth to bubble up. The goal was never the pain itself. The goal was the undeniable, gut-level laugh that only comes from seeing something completely, brutally honest. It's that laugh of pure recognition, that, oh my God, I can't believe he just did that, but it was real. And this is just such a huge shift in thinking. A shopping cart is no longer just a shopping cart. It's a piece of lab equipment for testing gravity and human spirit. A bull ring isn't just a ring, it's a controlled environment for studying fear. He wasn't a stuntman, not really. Stuntmen get paid to make fake things look real. He was more like a scientist, and his field of study was the human reaction. Every single setup was an experiment designed to answer one simple question: what happens when you strip away all the performance, all the acting, and you force a moment of pure, unfiltered truth? Okay, so he has this wild, brilliant philosophy, but how do you actually do that every day? Because real genius isn't just having a great idea, it's building a system to execute that idea, day in and day out, relentlessly.
He called it the reaction protocol, a simple, brilliant, three-step method. First, you set the trap. This is the engineering phase. You design a scenario, whether it's the insane prosthetics for bad grandpa or a giant homemade slingshot that is guaranteed to provoke a genuine response. Step 2, and this is the crucial part, you force the reaction by absolutely refusing to script the outcome. You don't act scared of the bull, you are scared of the bull. The reaction has to be physical, it has to be real. And finally, step 3, you capture the truth. That messy, unfiltered result isn't just extra footage, it is the story. The narrative, the clarity, it all comes from the honesty of that captured moment.
And his system was supported by a whole toolbox of disciplined habits. Trust me, this was anything but random chaos. He had something called the Liability Audit. Before any big stunt, he would do this routine check, not just for safety, but for sovereignty. He was asking himself, is this my choice, or am I doing this to please some network executive? It was his way of making sure he owned every single risk and every single outcome. Next was systematic escalation. He knew you couldn't just do the same thing over and over. He was constantly pushing the boundaries, making sure every new idea was a direct threat to boring, predictable TV. He was also a student of the game, adopting what he called the Buster Keaton model. He learned from the master how to let the physical comedy speak for itself, to stay stoic and let the fall tell the story. And holding it all together was foundational authenticity, this daily rhythmic habit of always choosing the honest impact over the perfect performance. So what was the end result of this completely unique philosophy and this disciplined system? Well, it didn't just make him a star. It completely redefined what it means to be an entertainer for an entire generation. He just completely shattered the old paradigm. On the left, you've got the old way. Success equals talent, and the goal is to become a safe insider. On the right, you've got Knoxville's new world. Success is redefined as unvarnished bravery. The goal isn't to get invited into the club anymore. It's to create an impact so undeniable that the club has no choice but to come to you. And the weapon of choice? It's not the perfect headshot anymore. It's fearlessness itself, packaged as a brand. He proved you don't need permission to have a voice. You just need the guts to make a scene. And this right here, this is his real legacy. Long before YouTube, long before TikTok, Johnny Knoxville literally created the blueprint for the modern content creator.
He proved you don't need a massive studio or a huge budget. He showed that you could take a simple, everyday object like a shopping cart and through pure will and a commitment to authenticity, turn it into a cultural icon for an entire decade. He basically wrote a new rule for the digital age. The only metric that truly matters is impact.
And that brings us to the final, and I think the most important part of this whole thing. Because this story isn't just about him, it's about us. It's about taking this incredibly powerful principle and figuring out how we can apply it to our own challenges, our own jobs, our own lives.
The main takeaway from all of this is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly profound. Your personal and professional power is directly tied to your willingness to stop trying so hard to look perfect, and instead, as the source puts it, start eating the hit. It's about embracing the attempt, accepting that failure is a real possibility, and understanding that the real learning, the real growth, the real impact, it happens in those messy, vulnerable moments, not in the moments of polished, predictable perfection.
So I want you to really think about this for a second. What's your version of the bulletproof vest test? What is that project at work? That tough conversation you need to have? That creative risk you've been putting off because it just feels too scary? Or because you're worried about what people will think if you fail? What's that one thing where choosing bravery over safety could unlock a completely new level for you?
This is the ultimate promise of the Knoxville Principle. When you make that conscious choice to raise your own level of fearlessness, you completely change your relationship with the world around you. You go from being a passive victim of your own self-doubt, and you become the active master of your own outcome. You become the one setting the trap, forcing the reaction, and capturing your own unique truth.
Let's end on that powerful thought. Safety is a choice, sure, but so is impact. The truth isn't in looking the part. It's in the real, tangible effect you have on the world. And the code, the key to unlocking your own unique brand of greatness, is and always will be your bravery. Thanks for tuning in.